Today, we're going to talk about something that is coming up a lot in my coaching conversations, and it's kind of the cheat code on finding a job. Applying and walking away from the computer thinking somebody's going to call you is going to eliminate probably about 70% of your applications immediately. There's too many people that are in the process. You need to stand out.
Hello. You're tuning into the Careering with Cameron podcast, your safe place to ask all the dumb questions about finding a job.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining Careering with Cameron. I'm Kevin. Today we're going to talk about something that is coming up a lot in my coaching conversations, and it's kind of the cheat code on finding a job. Here's the thing. There's an awful lot of information out there right now about AI, where to post, where to search for jobs, what sites are different that we can use. Should we be going out to the organization's webpage in order to apply? Is there a difference between applying on the organization's webpage versus, for example, LinkedIn? There's a whole lot of information going on right now in terms of best practices for finding a position. Some of those are for-profit ideas, i.e., sign up for my AI class and you'll be able to find a job by using AI to scrape job opportunities and apply for them. This is not a session on putting down on AI. This is a session for the reality is AI is a resource. It's not a solution. You shouldn't be using it as a solution. You should be using it as a resource. So it can help you to formulate ideas, come up with concepts, also find information, but you still have to put your own eyes on things when it comes to AI. It still needs to have your individual personality / fingerprint, I'll call it, when you're applying to positions. And here's the differentiator in terms of that job search process. Unfortunately, we've reached a point, we talked a little bit about this in a previous episode with Christine Tresky from Double Star. We've reached a point where there are simply just an unbelievable amount of applicants applying to positions. That's not because unemployment is at like a record high. That's not the reflection at all. It's that we've gotten to a place where applying to a job is pretty easy, similar to paying for something where you can swipe your phone. We've sped things up by using technology, and we've overwhelmed the systems that we have in order to evaluate those people, those candidates. So how do we get out of that? How do we find a way to utilize AI and be able to have a resume that hopefully will be seen and or make sense for our reader, who's probably taking somewhere between 5 and 7 seconds to scan your resume and decide if you're going to move forward? And that's the truth of the matter. The secret to this whole scenario in terms of finding a position, which has been 100% effective over the last, I've been testing this, probably the last 20 people who've landed positions within 2 months. I can tell you that the majority of those individuals applied to positions. They did, in fact, look at their resume in comparison to the job description. They made updates where they needed to, because maybe they needed to highlight other skills so that it looked to be more of a match, which it was. So very clear. I'm not saying to make things up on your resume. What I'm saying is make sure your resume reflects who you are as compared to that job description. You won't have one resume anymore. The days of one resume being the only resume you're going to use, and you simply add the next section on when you change jobs again, they're gone. This is a time when you're going to modify your resume based on the opportunity you're looking for and based on the opportunity you're excited about. So, how does this work? Well, A, you're going to do just that. Drop your resume, drop the job description and your resume into AI and ask it what their gaps are. Ask it where there's spaces between your job description that you're looking at and your resume. Do not decide that you're just going to have AI rewrite your resume and take that as your final product. That's not how this works. We need to still have your personality involved in your resume, and it needs to not look like everybody else who's doing just that. So we want to differentiate. That's the first piece, okay? We need to make the reading easy for the reader so that when they're looking at their 500th resume, they can say, oh, this person actually should have applied. I can see where they match up to the job, and I'm happy to move them forward. Now, that's not the only thing that you're going to do in job search. In fact, that's probably something that you could spend, but you can spend hours on it in terms of tuning up your resume. But where you're going to reap rewards is not just simply the application process. Applying and walking away from the computer thinking somebody's going to call you is going to eliminate probably about 70% of your applications immediately. Again, there's too many people that are in the process. You need to stand out. So how do you stand out? So this is really where the coaching comes into play when I'm working with individuals who have not been on a job search in quite some time. You have to network. Networking is still part of the deal. It is the hard part. I'm not going to pretend that it's not. It is the hard part, especially if you have a limited network, if it's not something you've ever really had to do. If it's something where maybe you've been with one employer for quite some time. Maybe you're fresh out of your degree program and now looking to network for the first time. This is a challenge. It's something that's going to be a skill you're going to need, regardless of your age. You're going to need it. And that's going to vary from finding your first opportunity through finding your last opportunity, through honestly finding consulting opportunities if you choose to do that before retirement or while retirement. So maybe you have like a partial retirement. These are important skills to have. The first step in doing that, and I'm going to try to make this as simple as possible so it's a really easy follow. The first step in doing that is looking at where you have some common ground. So instead of trying to hit people cold with a LinkedIn message, asking if you can connect to them and asking if they can send your resume to the hiring manager, which will get ghosted probably 98% of the time, you want to go in and look at people that you have in common. When we're coaching people on how to network, I like to tell them that it's like a dartboard. Your bullseye, and where you're going to see that the majority of your responses is that bullseye component of your dartboard. And that bullseye represents people that you know well, people that you've seen recently. Maybe they're people that you spend time with as friends. Maybe they're neighbors. Maybe they're people that you worked with directly when you were employed, or still work with them as an employee. You want to reach out to them and you want them to know what's happening in terms of the fact that you're interested in something new. And these are the types of things you're interested in, and that you would love their feedback in terms of either ideas they may have, things they'd like to talk to you about in terms of like what they think you may want to consider as well. People have lots of ideas. It's important to keep them as their ideas, but certainly consider them. But also making sure that that group, because they know you, they'll have a lot more power than your one single network. They'll be able to spread your news faster and farther than you can alone from a computer with LinkedIn as your applying database. Okay? They're real people. Just like when you go to Amazon or Walmart or wherever it may be, and you're buying something, you're looking for what other people's experience was. The people on that bullseye and the rest of the dartboard, once they're sharing your information, they're also saying my experience with this person was good. Therefore, you get so many gold stars like you're being reviewed online. Making sure that that happens is important. That will be the differentiator. I can tell you right now, the majority of the people I've worked with in the last 2 months that have landed within the last 2 months have all networked to those opportunities. And another really interesting component to that is typically when you're networking with people on the job search side, that tends to be an uplift for folks who are looking. So staying in your silo and not networking is more of a challenge than networking once you start to do it, because you have people around you who can also help to lift you up. They've been there. The majority of people at some point have been through a career change. They've been there. They can help you. So making sure that you're reaching out to people, you're networking. Those circles look like the following. So that first bullseye looks like the following. It would be people that you went to the same school as. You're an alumni of the same school. Typically, there's a very strong loyalty with alumni from either high school, college, graduate programs. They want to see that there's some commonality there, and the fact that you went to the same school helps you. The next piece of that would be people that you've worked with. People who have a similar organization that they worked in. They don't have to work side by side with you. They could be people who worked there 5 years before. You just noticed that they landed in an opportunity in a company you're interested in. Ask them what the culture's like. Ask them what it's like to work there. Ask them how they did it. Those are things that people typically will respond to, because you're not asking them if they can walk your resume down to the hiring manager cold. You have to get to know them a little bit first. The next piece of this is, don't forget about the organizations that you're volunteering for. Making sure that you're talking to people that you volunteer with who know you even better. And frankly, they probably know your passion, because you wouldn't be volunteering unless you really cared about that topic. So make sure that they're aware of your interest, because you never know who's also volunteering with you. Those are pieces that would be in the center of that bullseye for you. The next round out of there, the next ring, would be people that maybe you don't know quite as well. So this could be people who are working for an organization and you're like, you know what? I don't have an alumni who I can connect to, who I have common experience with in this one particular organization. That's okay. Your odds of connecting with that person and having something come back are not quite as high as the center of your bullseye, but certainly reaching out to them and letting them know that you're interested in the organization and you'd love to hear, once again, what's it like to work there? How did you decide to take that position? What are you excited about? Those are things that typically people will like to talk about. And especially if it's someone who has some experience maybe in a similar space to where you're coming from. Best practice exchange is always a good thing. Okay. That's the next piece. Those pieces alone will drive all the way out to the outside of your dartboard by bringing new people into your world. The goal is to have a lot of conversations. They may not all turn into conversations that turn into job offers, and they probably won't turn into job offers over coffee. Maybe, but not likely. But the bottom line is, applying to positions is something that you unfortunately have to do in most cases. And I equate that in coaching sessions to applying to positions is very similar to being in the middle of the ocean and shooting off a flare. And you might be noticed. People may see you. It might turn into something, we don't know. But it's just a flare that's in the sky, and hopefully you're kind of hoping that somebody's going to see it. The networking piece, you actually get some immediate gratification from. You get the response from somebody who says, you should talk to Brian, or you should talk to Bob, or you should talk to Caroline, whatever it may be. That's the reassurance that your messaging is hitting on point, and they understand what you're saying, first of all. But second, they can ask questions live, and chances are, if they're confused when you bring them this information, they probably will not be able to translate that while they're looking to talk to somebody else about your background. So make sure that you're having those conversations. Make sure also that you're leading with help. Lead with help. So going into a networking event and connecting with people and asking them how they can help you, or asking them about their work and then talking to them immediately about what you're looking for, is a good indication that you're really in it for yourself. People who network are not in it for themselves. They understand the fact that the networking is something where they're in it for the people around them, not necessarily themselves. So helping the people around them to continue to have good leads or good information, or to make new introductions for them, that's what it's about. And that's how you should go about this as well. If you are in a situation where you are currently not working, and you're part of, for example, a reorganization, chances are you know other people who can fill jobs that you can't. Those matches don't match. Making sure that you're considering the fact that, hey, I've got a lot of people who might be able to help you with that problem. I'd be happy to introduce them to you if you want to send me some information. That's a great way to help somebody with their day when they might be in a search for a specific skill set and not finding it. So that's a big component of the networking piece. Don't forget that. helping first. The next piece to keep in mind, and this one people often forget about, and it becomes essentially the networking yard sale. Make sure you're keeping track of the people that you're connecting with and do it via spreadsheet. You want to know where you met the person, who introduced you to the person, something specific about their background so you can call back on that when you reconnect later, whether it's that they have a kid playing a sport and they were talking about that. All of those things are important to keep in mind. It just shows that you actually were paying attention and you're interested in them. And it's not so transactional. Okay. So you want to make sure that you're doing that. Also making sure that you're asking, how can I help you at the end of your conversation? This was really helpful. I really appreciate it. I'd love to continue the conversation. Is there anything I can help you with at this point? Find out what they're working on. Find out what's a challenge for them right now. See if there is a way to help them. Because you're also, when you're doing your thank you note, or you're like, can we connect at such and such day and time note, you can include some information maybe on that topic. So if it's a scientific type of thing, if it's a research thing, maybe you can find something that would be interesting to them to include in that note. So they really do feel the value of having you as a connection. Those are important pieces. It's really helping and giving, and that usually helps people to move forward. The other thing is, and I do see this a fair amount, is it doesn't matter if you think the person's going to remember you or not. It doesn't matter. I would guess that if you went through every single person that you went to high school with in a yearbook, you probably would not remember them without their names. So why are we worried about if the person's going to know you or not? That's not even a thought at this point. What we're worried about is there some common ground that you can use to ensure the fact that there's a connection where you have some common experiences. So those common experiences are what make you be able to relatable to the new person. Doesn't matter if they know you, doesn't matter if you knew them, doesn't really matter if you worked well with them. This is really just more about networking. The other piece that I've heard a little bit about is, I'm not sure if they liked me. Well, here's the thing when you're networking, and you're considering talking to somebody, it doesn't matter if you think they liked you or didn't like you, or it's not important. You're not going to know unless you talk to them. And if they really, really don't like you, you're probably going to know pretty quickly. If they are indifferent, which they might be, they may not even remember you, then that's another person who you can work with that could say yes. So keep in mind, the conversations that you don't have are not going to do anything for you. All right? That's one that people forget about. So choosing to eliminate somebody out of your network, or out of your networking, I should say, is 100% going to do one thing for you, and that is it's not going to produce any fruit whatsoever. Taking a shot and reaching out to them, regardless of what you may or may not think your relationship is with them, will give you at least a 50-50 shot that something could come from there. And personally, I'm going to take 50% over 0 every time. So make sure you're doing that as well. Okay. The last piece is follow up. So often we get to a place where we are working in the network. We put the one message out. We do some outreach via phone. Maybe it's LinkedIn. Maybe it's text. And then we don't touch it again because we reached out. And then that little voice starts in about they haven't responded. I don't think they like me. Maybe they don't want to help me. Maybe there's a reason why they don't want to help me. Honestly, maybe they're just busy. Okay? Maybe they haven't seen your email. Maybe they did and they forgot to get back to you. And now they're embarrassed because it took so long to get back to you. Go ahead and reach out to them again. It doesn't have to be one and done, and it shouldn't be. Because if you think about, and I love doing this in coaching sessions, if you think about how often you were in LinkedIn when you were gainfully employed, I would bet unless you're a recruiter or a salesperson, you were not sitting in LinkedIn every day watching for your next email to come in, right? Chances are no. So chances are folks who are working are probably also not sitting in LinkedIn waiting for the next email to come in. And if it's something where it's their LinkedIn, it may be going to their personal email address, which could also mean they're not seeing it during the workday. Couple things there. One, reach out to them more than once. Also reach out to them more than one way. So maybe if you have their cell phone number, you text them. Maybe if you don't have their cell phone number, you figure out what their email would be at work and send them a message just to make sure they saw it. I would say, I always tell people to stop short of standing outside their work office and trying to see them in their window. I think that's a mistake. I think that can really scare people. Same thing with standing outside their house. Also a bad idea. But I do think that finding their work email, and usually you can do that. There's lots of platforms online to find that information. And reaching out to them with a message is 100% okay. They can choose to respond or not. They can choose to block you. They can choose to call you spam. They can choose whatever they want to do. We have lots of options based on technology. All I'm saying is make sure that you're not just saying, all right, I sent this one message and that was the dagger I threw and nothing landed from that. So I'm just going to let that person go. I don't need to talk to them anymore. And if they ever send me a message, I'm going to ignore it, right? Don't do that. Give them a chance to get back to you. Give them some space to realize they could be very busy. You don't know what's going on in their life at that point in time. And I would hope that they'll get back to you. Also consider your message. If your message looked like, hey, this is Kevin, and I'm searching for a job. I haven't found anything. I'm really hoping to find something. Are you guys hiring? Probably not going to get a quick response to that. That is a message that is going to make them feel like they need at least 2 hours to spend with you and talk you off the ledge. The message around, hey, this is Kevin. I'm interested in finding something new. My position was eliminated, and I am just trying to figure out what would be next and what types of opportunities would be interesting. I saw that you landed with Talent Connect, and I'm curious to know what it's like to work there. How'd you find the job? What information can you share with me that might be helpful that you found in your search? That is a very, very non-committal. Kevin's not going to have to say yes or no to hiring me on this phone call where he's going to feel a lot of pressure. Instead, it's really what can you tell me that might help me out with my search? You can get off the phone at the end of that hour, 15 minutes, whatever it may be, and everybody feels good. Okay. Think about the message that you're sending if you're worried that people aren't responding. And if it feels like it's too much pressure, that's bad. Lighten it up. Okay. Those are just some tips that we've been working with in coaching over the last several months, years. We've helped quite a few people who have really been focused on why is the application process not working for me? How come I'm sending my resume and I'm not getting a response? Does my resume need to be optimized by whatever platform they're looking at? Your resume is your resume. It should reflect that you're a different person than the person next to you. It also should be something that you feel comfortable with and that you like. It's your marketing piece. So it needs to be edited, probably needs to be tuned up, maybe needs to be spruced up. Same with LinkedIn. But the bottom line is the networking piece. If I was betting on somebody who's going to find a job and I was betting two people, one was going to be somebody who only used an application and one was going to be somebody who networked, I bet the networking person every single time. That's going to get you the rewards of jobs. It might be getting you a reward of a job that's already posted. I'm not saying that's not going to be the case. But the only way you're going to be seen in most cases when you're applying to a posted position is by finding somebody who's there. And that would be somebody who obviously has some common ground, as I identified throughout this show. I hope this is helpful. I realize it's very to the point, a little bit different for the podcast than we normally have, but there's several things that have been very helpful to people over the last few months that I just wanted to share with this audience because I think it can be helpful for you as well. If you are in a position where you do need some help, reach out. Actually, if you're in a position where you know somebody who needs this help, they've reached out and said, hey, I really need to find a position. Please help me. Send them to the podcast. Send this podcast. Send us 5 stars if you feel like doing that. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, and we'll see you next time on Careering with Cameron. Thanks so much.